Strazza, it's going to be an epic early season matchup next week. Bills-Dolphins.
The Dolphins NFL power rankings ranked them 5. Couldn't believe that.
What, because they had one good quarter?
Right? Like 5? I mean, I get it. They played a couple good games this year, but geez.
What's happening, everybody? It's your boys, Steve Strazza and Chicago Sean McLaughlin. How's everybody doing? We were on a little bit of a hiatus the last couple of weeks. Strazza had some family in town. We had to take a break that week, and then Steve and I and JC were in the Huntington Beach last week, supposedly working. So we've been off the schneid a little bit, but hey, we're back. We're back. And Strazza just told me right before he went live, he just dropped a bomb. He said, we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I missed this. So we got to catch everybody up. We got like 3 weeks, a backlog.
We do. All right. Well, hey, let me jump ahead of you, Strazza, real quick, because we didn't do a video last week, so we didn't talk about the Follow the Flow, but we did put a trade on from last week's Follow the Flow report. You and I were talking just before we went on live here. We did get long TNK, the TK Tankers, which had some unusual options activity last week. So that's a trade that we are in. It's it's working pretty well at last I checked, especially the last 2 days. It's had some good moves, trading above 31.90. Our trade is in the money now. We bought what did we buy? We bought the January 30 calls, and now they're in the money. Looking good.
This group has been freakishly strong. Oil tankers, right? So that's top-down technical analysis, right? Textbook right there, where energy is the strongest group. That's the sector we want to focus on. When we drill within energy for weeks now, months really, when I'm looking at the new highs list by sector, in energy, it's all the oil tankers rising to the top. They keep making new highs. So we have a new one on the list today.
Ooh, let's hear about it. Let's see it.
So these are all small stocks. This is DHT. They're a 1.4 billion microcap. So still swimming in the small cap space. I don't think TNK is large either, though. And you were able to find,
Wait a second. Back up 1 second. Did you say a $1.2 billion company qualifies as a microcap these days? Is that true?
No. It's I'm sorry. No, it's a small cap. Small cap. 300 to 2 billion. That's how they're doing that. So it's a small. The TNK trade that you put on, also small, even smaller. They're sub $1 billion, $930 million stock. But so here's DHT on our list here. They were hitting the January 2023 calls at both $9 and $10 on Tuesday of last week. And the chart just broke out towards the end of the week. So I brought it along here. I'll hold off on that one. Here's DHT. Right, really nice base.
Interesting you say that action was on Tuesday. That was the day the market was getting killed, right?
14th.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, it was Wednesday. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. See, Strazza and I we forget what day is what day because last week was just a weird travel week.
No, but you're right. So I'm going to change my mind again. The market was down huge. It was the 13th. It was last Tuesday. So they were buying calls, out of the money calls in this thing.
The notable thing about last Tuesday when the market was getting crushed, I mean, the worst day we'd seen in a year. I don't know the stats there, but
almost 2
years. So the best part about that, ladies and gentlemen, was Steve Strazza live on stage was wearing his bull market shirt.
Boy, did I pick the wrong day to wear my bull market shirt.
Oh, that was great.
You know what else is funny? I think Barry, so it was the Ritholtz conference that we were at. Those are the guys who had put it on. And Barry always talks about how you tend to get like big market corrections or sell-offs during conferences. And then it happened at his conference. Like he's been
You're half right. What he always says is we tend to get market corrections whenever I travel is what Barry always says. And sure enough, we were all traveling to his conference and boom.
Yeah, so that's great. I love that. Let's talk about some other tankers. I brought a bunch for you. Here's TNK. That's the one we're already long. Both options and common. We like this one a lot. We have trades on both. Euronav is another one. EURN. Just look at all these bases. They all look the same. Evolution Petroleum, smaller base here. EPM we like also. And Frontline, FRO. So we threw them all in an index. Not many sectors or industry groups look like this oil tanker index that we just put together. So like the space a lot, think you need to be a little bit patient, considering, the strength over the past week. They're all kind of overbought now. But what do you think?
Well, I like that. I was blissfully unaware that TNK had a lot of friends in the sector supporting this price action, kind of doing the same thing. So that just adds more confidence to me to that trade. It's still early days in the trade, but it's definitely off to a great start. And when comparable companies are following suit, that just makes me feel a lot better about it.
Yeah, they're not showing any signs of slowing down. So, and these stocks, you made a great point. These stocks are doing this over the super near term, right? With the broader market under the pressure it's been under, these stocks have been making new highs.
Right.
Stands out. If you're bored with these, I brought some others. We could just move on.
You said you had a lot to talk about, so let's go through it. We like I said, we've been off for 2 weeks, so let's give the people what they want, Strazza.
So those are some of the best looking stocks, right, that we just talked about. This would be a leadership group over long-term timeframes and now also shorter-term timeframes. Energy, more specifically, oil tankers. What haven't been leaders for this entire cycle is growth stocks. We have a lot of these names that we have talked about on the show time and time again, popping up on our list today. So DraftKings last Monday, and then again on Thursday, DKNG. Could that have anything to do with sports being on TV again?
I would think that would be so, yes.
So DraftKings making our list, football season underway now, seeing some interest in that stock, probably not a coincidence. Pinterest, which I think we were been in and out of the common because it's still kind of basing, but it looks really constructive. So they were hitting pins calls on Thursday. October's out of the money.
Yeah, we got shaken out of our pins trade back in the third week of August, but it regained. I mean, we pretty much got out at the low of that reaction. But the good news is, or I don't know if it's good news, but it's kind of right back to where we had first gotten in. Yeah. We first got in, on August 2nd, I believe was the day, or August 3rd? I don't remember exactly, but.
Yeah, right when it started coiling there.
Yeah.
So it's still basing, and I was talking about this on Saturday. I was going through a ton of charts. When you look through a lot of these growth charts, like the main theme is more basing is probably needed. If it looks like they're resolving from a base and then that fails, and the ones that are resolving lower from bases are also failing, I think this whole market just needs more time basing. Pins is probably a good example of that, but it's back on our list today. And it does stand out. In that space, you could find charts that look a whole lot worse than Pinterest, particularly in social media. So social media stocks are literally some of the worst, right? If you look at something like Meta or Facebook, new lows across the board, Snapchat's a disaster. They're all really bad. If those stocks as a group could ever stop, this is probably the one you want to be in. That's top of my list.
Well, that dovetails well with the email that JC sent out over the last day or two where he was talking about how, all of the stocks have just been getting crushed over the last, let's call it 12 to 18 months. They haven't been making new lows over the last 3 months. And so if they can't make new lows, then maybe the market has found some, support. I hate to use the word support, but maybe the worst of it is over. Maybe.
If the worst stocks, can't break support and make new lows, then yeah, bottom's probably in. And that is that's kind of what we've been seeing. Last week we did get a couple started making new lows of those mega caps, but at the sector and the index level, that list is still very small of new lows.
Side note, I believe I read it in the Wall Street Journal this weekend. They were talking about how the strength in the energy sector has been masking the weakness in the overall market because the energy sector has been performing so well, even though the energy sector only makes up 4% of the S&P.
I think it might be 5 now, but it was 2.5 when this whole bull market started a few years back.
Yeah. Interesting. Anyway, sorry about that.
Bifurcation there's been crazy, right? What energy's done versus what everything else has done. It's funny because for years, everything else was doing great. Energy was doing terrible. And then that relationship we've just seen totally flip this year.
Right on.
Or that stood out that, I have to talk about was Robinhood.
Oh, yeah, man, that thing has just been struggling.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not hurting us, but it's not doing anything we want it to do either.
So, and that goes back to the more basing, right? It looked like it was leaving the station, popped higher from that coil, took out a risk level above 10, right back to it, right? And that's what we've seen with all the bases, Pinterest, Sean, all of these growthy trades that we put on, we're seeing these false starts and this really sloppy action. So these trades aren't for everybody. You want to kind of keep them tighter, keep tight stops, shorter time frames too. I think Robinhood eventually gets to 16, but I think it's proven the past few days that it's going to need some more time.
Well, this is just a visual explanation of what happens to stocks that are, popular stocks that everyone piled into. These were names that everybody had on the top of their list, that they wanted to buy. All these software names, all these growth names, the Robinhoods of the world, the Coinbases of the world, all the names that were in the news. So many people got into those waves and rode those waves higher. Peloton, another one, right? Like just names that everybody was talking about during the pandemic. And there's a lot of bag holders in those names, a lot of bag holders. And so what we're really probably seeing here is every rally is met with just another level of people who are just happy to cut their losses here. They got worn out and worn down, and they just want to get out. And until we work through all of that, some of these names are going to take a while to recover, and some might not.
I couldn't agree more. And you're seeing that, right? Strength is getting sold everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Except in energy.
Excluding it. Even a lot of areas of energy, you could even say. Let's get some new highs from XLE. It's about time. Yeah. But as long as that remains the case, where you're seeing strength really get sold in these growth stocks, it's going to probably remain messy, more base building, more sideways action. The names that we just discussed, DraftKings, Pinterest, Robinhood, all have one thing in common, which is why I think it's important and good that we're talking about them. They're all leaders against their peer group, right? So if and when this thing does turn, right, and we can have conviction that growth stocks bottomed, the names that we just discussed should be at the top of your list, right? They should continue to outperform and show relative strength.
Leaders gotta lead. So do we have a trade, Strazza? Is there something we want to put a trade on here? I'm itching. I'm itching for a trade.
So I like DHT this week, but it would have to be a longer term setup. Let me see where it is today. I would love to buy this thing on a little bit of weakness. All right, pulling back a tiny bit today. Look at yesterday's candle. Do you have a chart that can zoom in more than mine?
Yep.
Look at that candle yesterday. So talk about, and where that candle occurred, right? You could see on my chart. That's where you got that candle, at this shelf of former highs. To us, we call that a decisive breakout, right? We always want to see, confirmation of these new highs when we're getting them. We can get confirmation from a big bar like that, a lot of volume, an overbought RSI or momentum reading, new highs and relative strength. So this one, we're getting new highs and relative strength, overbought momentum reading, massive volume, and a huge bar on the breakout. So this one, totally breakout candidate.
That was yesterday was the highest volume of the summer too, which is a good sign.
Massive volume, yeah. So you got across the board of this breakout. So I really think it sticks.
If you look at the bottom of my chart here, I see that implied volatility is rising a little bit. So it's not cheap, nor is it really all that expensive.
Is that normal, though? Is that something you would tend to see? So this was a big momentum-driven move. You had the technical breakout. Do you typically see an uptick in implied vol, something like that? Or?
Well, in this case, the rising implied vol might just be representative of the fact that, if you want to speak in terms of average true range, right? The stock, when it was trading at $5-6 a share, it was moving, was it 5-10% intraday, and now it's moving 20-25% over the last couple of days. I mean, or not 20-25%, but maybe 10% moves intraday from high to low. So just the absolute point moves in the stock might be representative here in the option. I'm not saying that with 100% certainty, but I feel like that might be a part of it. We have earnings out of the way, so that's certainly not the issue. But I mean, look, what's probably happening here, Strazza, I mean, look, you're showing that there's aggressive activity happening on the calls, right? People are buying out of the money calls. And so it might just be speculators bidding up the price of calls, which is being reflected in the rising implied volatility. That would make sense. That makes the most sense to me.
Yeah, totally. And when you look at the chart, it makes even more sense.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the options here. This is a name I have not traded options in that I could recall anytime, if ever.
Look at this.
Yeah, so there's not. This is interesting. There's some open interest here in October, not much in November, but then in January we got a lot, and the bid-ask spreads are pretty tight.
So they were mixing it up with the January 20 nines and tens. So you can probably see that open interest there.
Yep, I mean the nines have the highest open interest there in January. You can see on my screen right here. So yeah, I mean the stock is cheap enough, even though volatility is rising a little bit. The stock is cheap enough that if I wanted to be aggressive here, I would not mind buying the calls. I mean, the reality here, Strazza, is that if this stock reverses on us, it's probably going to reverse hard. So whatever trade we want to put on, we want to definitely define our risk. We don't want to have any open-ended risk on something like this. So if I were to get into this trade, if I wanted to be aggressive, I'm thinking I would look at these January options, and I would probably look at the 10 strike. Yeah, probably the 10 strike. Pay about 70 cents for them, 75 cents. And, let's see if we can get this thing to move up, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 bucks. If that happened, we'd get a pretty nice return on these calls we paid, let's say 70, 75 cents for.
So I like that a lot. I think if this breakout is a valid one, which I feel very strongly that it is, 1250, we probably see pretty quickly. You should get a pretty quick reaction. First leg, 1250, that should happen long before January.
Yeah. So for those of you who feel like being aggressive and you think that these buyers here, these aggressive buyers of the January 9 and 10 calls, they have a little, we'll call it, they got a hint. They got a hint that something's coming along. I'm not going to say insider trading. I'm not going to say that, but somebody knows something, as my friend Lee Corso likes to say. You might want to play along here. This is for the people who are comfortable with risk and don't mind taking an aggressive bet once in a while.
And to that point, it's not company specific that these guys are betting on, right? This is a macro theme that we're seeing here. I've never seen oil tankers on this list before. They've been on there the last 2 weeks. Market's been under pressure for the past week or two. Oil tankers are all making new highs. Some investors out there are seeing something that they want a piece of, right? And if you like a story, a good story, well, it makes a lot of sense why they would hit these stocks. If you read the news, see what's going on around the world, there is a crisis and we're trying to get oil to where it needs to go. These are the companies that are actually doing that. So if I had to put on my fundamental hat, that's what I would think. This one makes a lot of sense, makes sense in every way.
Yeah. Well, interesting. I hadn't really thought about tankers since the last crisis. That would be the great financial crisis, when all these tankers were getting killed across the board. I mean, tanker stocks, I remember some that were like trading in the $200-$300 range that became basically penny stocks during the great financial crisis. So here we are again, just on the other side of the coin. We'll see what happens.
I think there used to be an ETF for these names too, if I remember correctly.
Let me guess, it delisted right around late 2012.
I don't even remember. It's been a long time, but I'm pretty sure there was an ETF out there.
All right, folks. So that's a trade that we have that we're going to keep an eye on. That maybe you might want to play along with. January options and DHT. We like the 10 calls, but there's some aggressive buyers out there buying the 9 calls as well. So keep an eye on that. Maybe play along. That's our flow show for today. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And we should be back next week unless Strazza's got a date or something. I don't know. He's a busy guy over there.
No dates, no conferences. Flow show's on.
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great trading day. Have a great week. And we will talk to you next time. Thanks, Strazza.